this isn't one of those fake creepypastas. This isn't some story I found online or a chain email that's been recycled since the MySpace days. This is real, and it ruined my life. I shouldn't even be telling you this. Honestly, I swore to myself I never would. But after what's happened, after what I've seen, after what's still happening, I don't think I have a choice anymore. Maybe if I get this out, maybe if I tell someone, I won't feel so alone with it. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking. Either way, you need to know. You've heard about lost media, right? The weird cartoons that got pulled after one airing. The banned episodes that studios bury so deep you'd think they never existed. Most of those are just urban legends made up by bored fans. But every now and then, one of them is true. Every now and then, something slips through the cracks that wasn't supposed to. That's what happened with me. It was a tape, just an old, beat-up VHS that should have meant nothing. But inside was a SpongeBob episode Nickelodeon has spent years trying to erase from existence. And I get why. Because once you've seen it, once it's burned into your head, you start to understand why they never wanted it out there. It isn't just disturbing, it's dangerous. I know how this sounds. You're probably already thinking, oh, here we go, another Squidward suicide ripoff. I wish that's all this was. I wish this was just another lazy creepypasta. But what I found wasn't a story. It wasn't fiction. And it's not finished with me. They warned me never to share it. I won't tell you who they are yet. You wouldn't believe me anyway. But I'll say this. The moment I got the tape, I stopped being invisible. Something started watching me. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. And now I can't tell where the episode ends and my own life begins. You probably think you're safe because you're just listening. You're not. If you stick with me, you're already involved. That's how this works. But before I show you what I saw, before I drag you into the same nightmare, I need you to understand how it started. I need to tell you how I even got the tape in the first place. I grew up on SpongeBob. Saturday mornings, rainy afternoons, the glow of the TV spilling across the carpet while I sat cross-legged with a bowl of cereal that went soggy before the first commercial break. It was my comfort show. Everyone at school quoted it. The teachers rolled their eyes at our bad impressions of Patrick. And even my dad, who hated cartoons, knew the theme song. It was simple, silly, and safe. At least, that's what I thought. Some of my earliest memories are tied to that yellow sponge. I'd tape marathons on our old VCR, labeling each cassette with clumsy handwriting. SpongeBob, best episodes. I still remember the smell of the warm plastic, the clatter of the rewinder, and the thrill of knowing I could rewatch my favorite bits whenever I wanted. The Krusty Krab training video, the hash-slinging slasher episode, even the one where Squidward eats too many Krabby Patties. I knew them all by heart. It felt like home. But even back then, there were moments, little things, episodes that felt off somehow, backgrounds that seemed darker than they should be, characters lingering too long on a shot, a flicker of something in a single frame that disappeared before I could be sure I'd seen it. I told myself it was just my imagination or some glitch on the tape. Kids see things. Kids make things up. As I got older, the nostalgia only deepened. Life got harder, more complicated, and revisiting SpongeBob was like stepping into a time capsule. It was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be mine. But sometimes, when I watched late at night, the laughter tracks sounded wrong, too sharp, too human. And I'd feel this strange pull in my stomach, like I wasn't alone in the room anymore. You probably think I'm reading too much into it. That's what I thought too. Until years later, when I stumbled into forums about lost media and banned episodes. People whispering about shows that were never meant to air, fragments of footage pulled before the public could see. Most of it was just fan speculation and hoaxes, the kind of stuff you laugh at while scrolling. But one thread stopped me cold. It wasn't long, just a few screenshots, no audio. The title was vague. The episode Nickelodeon pretends never happened. No one would say more. Every time someone asked, the replies vanished. Threads locked, posts deleted. I thought it was trolling. I wanted to believe it was trolling. If you grew up with SpongeBob, this will ruin everything you thought you knew. I'm not being dramatic. I later learned even some Nickelodeon staff pretend this episode never existed, like it's a stain on the network's history. And when you realize why, it's already too late. Looking back, I think the universe was trying to warn me. I should have closed the tab. I should have walked away. But nostalgia makes you bold. Nostalgia makes you reckless. I had spent so much of my childhood trying to hold onto these tapes, these memories. So when a stranger offered me one I'd never seen before, a beat-up cassette with a label too faded to read, I didn't hesitate. That's when I found the tape. I didn't find the tape the way you'd expect. It wasn't sitting out in the open, waiting for me like some treasure in a dusty attic. No, it came to me in fragments, hints, warnings, and accidents that piled up until I couldn't ignore them anymore. The first time I saw it was in a thrift shop. The kind of place that smells like mildew and cheap perfume. Aisles jammed with boxes of half-dead electronics. VHS tapes stacked in milk crates. Disney clamshells with peeling stickers. I wasn't even looking for anything special. I just liked digging through the wreckage of other people's nostalgia. Buried under a stack of Barney sing-alongs and taped-over home movies, I spotted it. A black VHS with no sleeve, just a torn white label. Most of the writing had been smudged out, but one word was still visible, scratched into the paper like someone had carved it with a pen. SpongeBob. I picked it up, and I swear the air changed. The thrift shop was noisy a second before, cash registers chiming, kids whining, some radio station playing static-laced pop songs. But holding that tape, it all went muffled, like I was underwater. The cashier, an old man with a sunken face, froze when he saw what I was carrying. "Where'd you get that?" he asked, voice flat. "Over there," I said, nodding to the crate. "Why, is it rare?" He didn't answer. He just stared, lips moving like he wanted to say something, but couldn't. Finally, he shook his head. "Don't watch it," he muttered, barely audible. I laughed awkwardly. "Is it that bad?" This time he looked straight at me, eyes pale and wet. "You think I'm joking, but once you see it, it sees you back. I should have left it there. I should have dropped the damn thing back into the box and walked away. But instead, I pulled a crumpled dollar bill from my pocket and slid it across the counter. He didn't even touch it, just pushed the tape toward me with the tip of one finger, like it burned him. That was the first warning. The second came online. Some of you remember the Blue's Clues incident I covered last year, the tape with frames of something spliced in that never should have been there. I was already familiar with how these things circulate, so I started searching. Lost media forums, dark archives, subreddits that vanish faster than they appear. And every time I mentioned SpongeBob, people clammed up. Threads locked instantly. Accounts deleted. But once, just once, someone replied. Their username was BarnacleHost, and their comment was only one line: "Destroy it before it starts." Then their account disappeared. That's when the paranoia started to set in. Who was BarnacleHost? How did they know I had the tape? The third warning came from the tape itself. I hadn't even pressed play yet, but strange things started happening. I'd leave it on the desk, only to find it resting on my pillow when I came back. Once, I swore I heard laughter, thin and warbling, echoing from inside the plastic shell. Still, I couldn't stop. You don't understand. When you're staring at something forbidden, it pulls at you. Curiosity becomes hunger. It felt like if I didn't watch it, I'd go insane imagining what might be inside. I tried telling a friend about it, showing them the tape. But the second they touched it, their face went pale. "Dude, it's warm," they whispered, dropping it like it shocked them. They wouldn't answer my calls after that. That should have been enough. It should have scared me away. But the truth is, by then I was already hooked. Whoever had owned the tape before me hadn't wanted to keep it, but they hadn't wanted to destroy it either. Why? What could be so bad, so impossible, that even getting rid of it wasn't an option? I told myself it was just a VHS. Plastic, tape, magnetic reels. Harmless. But deep down, I knew that was a lie. The man at the thrift shop, the online warnings, even my friend's reaction, they weren't coincidences. There was something wrong with this tape. And still, I couldn't resist. I wish I could tell you I stopped there, that I listened to the warnings, that I put it back in the box and walked away. But of course, I pressed play. I don't know what I expected when I slid the tape into my old VCR. A glitchy home recording. Some rejected storyboard experiment. Maybe a fan-made parody that someone at Nickelodeon never meant to leak. What I saw, it started off almost normal. The episode opened with the usual cheery flute music, the sky blue background, the flowers drifting across the screen. For a moment, I felt like a kid again, waiting to laugh at something harmless. But then the title card appeared, and that's where the unease began. The background was a few shades darker than it should have been. Not cheerful ocean blue, but murky, almost black, with faint streaks like something oily was smeared across it. The letters read simply, Episode 134. No subtitle, no joke title, just the number, blocky and stark. The theme song started, but it sounded wrong. The tempo was slower, dragged out, like someone had pitched it down a few keys. The children's chorus was missing. Only one voice sang the lyrics, an adult man monotone, with no enthusiasm. You know how SpongeBob usually bursts out of his pineapple with that huge, goofy grin? Here, he just shuffled out the door. No smile, no bounce in his step. Still, I told myself it was just bad editing. A test reel. Nothing to panic about. The episode proper began with SpongeBob walking to the Krusty Krab. Pretty standard, but the animation quality looked off. Backgrounds didn't line up. Characters jittered between frames, like they'd been drawn by different people who weren't on the same page. At one point, the sidewalk behind SpongeBob rippled, as though it were underwater in a way it shouldn't have been. When he reached the Krusty Krab, Squidward was at the register. His voice was the first thing that felt genuinely wrong. Normally, his sarcasm is funny, exaggerated, almost cartoonish. But here, it sounded flat, bitter, real. SpongeBob bounded up to him and shouted, "Good morning, Squidward." But the timing was off. The mouth flaps didn't sync with the audio. Squidward's reply, "What's so good about it?" was followed by canned laughter that erupted too loud, distorted, like it was recorded from a crowd in agony rather than amusement. The laugh track didn't stop when the scene changed. It just kept going, even as Mr. Krabs came out of his office. You might think I'm exaggerating, but if you'd seen it, you'd know. Mr. Krabs' eyes bulged unnaturally. Each movement of his pupils exaggerated, like the animators wanted him to look at me through the screen. When he laughed, it didn't sound like the usual RRR. It was wet, sloppy, a sound like gargling blood. The first act played out with SpongeBob trying to make Krabby Patties, but everything was slightly wrong. The patties sizzled louder than normal, drowning out dialogue. When SpongeBob flipped one, the grease splattered across the camera lens and didn't fade. It just stayed there, obscuring part of the screen with a reddish smear. I told myself again, it had to be a rough cut, maybe even an animation test. But there was something else, something I couldn't shake. The characters weren't just acting differently. They were looking at me, not directly, never straight into the lens, but their eyes would linger a little too long after each line, drifting slightly off-center, like they were aware someone was watching. Like they were aware it was me. And it wasn't just me projecting. I swear I heard SpongeBob's voice shift, just for a second. Instead of his usual squeal, there was a low whisper underneath. "Are you watching?" I paused the tape, sat there in silence, heart hammering. When I pressed play again, SpongeBob was still staring, his eyes wider, unblinking. Then, as though nothing had happened, he went back to cooking patties. Dark humor crept in too, but not the kind you could laugh at. At one point, Squidward muttered, "I should just end it already." The line wasn't delivered like a joke. No exaggerated groan, just flat despair. The audience laughter didn't follow, it cut out completely. Like even the show itself didn't know how to react. The background music, usually jaunty, bouncy, shifted into something else entirely. Low brass notes, stretched out too long, almost funereal. It was quiet enough that you could ignore it if you wanted, but once you noticed, it got under your skin. Halfway through, things started glitching harder. SpongeBob repeated a line 3 times, each version pitched slightly lower. The picture fuzzed with static, but the static wasn't random, it formed shapes. Faces. For a fraction of a second, I saw something that looked like Squidward, but not quite. His skin was pale gray, his eyes black pits, his mouth hanging open wider than a human jaw should allow. Then the frame snapped back, and SpongeBob was laughing again. Only the laugh didn't sound like him. You might be rolling your eyes right now, thinking I'm mistaking editing errors for horror. I wish that were true. Because even with all of that, the worst part hadn't started yet. That was before the screaming started. Then everything changed. The shift didn't happen all at once. It crept in, like a shadow lengthening across a room you thought was safe. The episode picked up with SpongeBob serving a tray of Krabby Patties to a group of fish customers. On the surface, it looked like any normal scene, but the fish were wrong. Their bodies were static, unmoving, like paper cutouts propped against the tables. Their eyes bulged unnaturally large, no blinking, no animation. SpongeBob placed a patty in front of one, and the fish's mouth opened, wider and wider, until it split the face in half. Then the frame cut to black. When it came back, SpongeBob was still smiling. But it wasn't the goofy grin everyone remembers. It was stretched, grotesque, pulling too high on one side, his teeth jagged, and too real. Hyperrealistic. That phrase gets overused in stories like this, but I don't know what else to call it. His teeth weren't drawn, they looked photographed, yellowed at the gums, cracked, like they belonged to a corpse. I can't describe what SpongeBob's face looked like in that frame. Let's just say it wasn't human anymore. The audio followed the same descent. The familiar undersea sound effects, the bubble pops, the comedic slide whistles vanished. In their place was static. Low, whispering static, like a radio tuned just off station. Sometimes, beneath the static, I swore I could hear words. My name, my street, a voice saying, "Stay seated." The episode became disjointed. Scenes didn't follow one another logically anymore. One moment SpongeBob was at the Krusty Krab. The next he was in his bedroom. Then standing alone in a void of black water. Frames repeated out of order, like the tape was splicing itself in real time. The transitions weren't smooth cuts, They were violent lurches, as if something had ripped pieces of film and jammed them back together in the wrong sequence. And then came the violence. Mr. Krabs staggered into SpongeBob's house, his shell cracked, leaking something dark. His laughter was gone, replaced with a gurgle. Without dialogue, without reason, he lunged at SpongeBob. The camera didn't pan away. It stayed locked as SpongeBob tore into him with his bare hands, his sponge body rippling in ways flesh shouldn't. The sound design was wet, too wet. I wanted to cover my ears, but I couldn't. Squidward appeared in the background of that scene, but he wasn't animated. He was real. A grainy photograph of a man in a Squidward costume, just standing there still, arms limp at his sides. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, glassy. The photo flickered in and out for a few frames, too quick to process, but enough to burn into my memory. I felt sick. My stomach twisted, and for a second, I thought I'd vomit right there in my living room. But I couldn't stop watching. My hand hovered over the remote, frozen, like some invisible weight pressed it down. That's when the fourth wall started to break. Characters began to notice the camera. Not in a jokey, wink to the audience way, but with a slow, dawning awareness. SpongeBob, blood still dripping from his fingers, turned his head not toward Squidward, not toward the mangled shape of Mr. Krabs, but straight into the lens. His smile didn't move, but his eyes locked on me. He didn't blink. "You're still here," he whispered. I almost dropped the remote. The line wasn't delivered in Tom Kenny's voice. It was SpongeBob at all. It was a flat, genderless tone, like a voice sample stretched across a synthesizer. And then it got worse. The static surged, flashing images so quickly I could barely register them. Crime scene photographs. Real ones. I swear they were real. Blood-soaked mattresses. A bathroom with red streaks up the walls. A pair of pale feet sticking out from under a sheet. Between those flashes came cryptic text, single words in white font against black. Watch, listen, obey. I wanted to look away, but every time I tried, my vision blurred until the tape was all I could see. Part of me thinks telling you this puts you in danger too. Maybe you're already infected by hearing it. Maybe the tape doesn't need the physical reel anymore. Maybe it just needs an audience. At one point, the scene cut to SpongeBob sitting alone at the bottom of the ocean. His arms were limp, his face blank. For almost 30 seconds, nothing happened. Just silence. Then, his mouth began to move. Not in the usual exaggerated animation style, but slowly, realistically, as if someone had filmed a human mouth and pasted it onto his face. The words that came out weren't meant for anyone in the episode. They were meant for me. "I see you." I recoiled, nearly toppling the chair. My living room light flickered. I swear to God, for a split second, SpongeBob's reflection was in the glass of the TV screen, not the cartoon version, but something else. Something closer to flesh. I should have stopped the tape right then. I should have pulled it out, snapped it, burned it, anything. But I couldn't. hands wouldn't move. My body felt locked in place, like the tape was pulling at me through invisible strings. And then they started talking to me. Plural, not just SpongeBob. Patrick appeared next, his smile cracked wide open, teeth overlapping like rows of shark jaws. His voice echoed, layered, like multiple people speaking at once. You shouldn't be here. Behind him, shapes moved. Dozens of them. Fish, characters, human silhouettes, all blurry, flickering like they were trapped between frames. They chanted, distorted, overlapping, until it was just noise. I couldn't breathe. The last thing I remember clearly is Squidward again. He was on the floor, his clarinet broken in half beside him. He raised his head slowly, blood dripping from his eyes like tears, and said, "This is the only episode." The screen cut to black. I sat there, shaking, drenched in sweat, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to believe it was over, that I had imagined half of it. But deep down, I knew. The tape wasn't finished with me. That was only the first viewing. Things got worse when I tried to stop. When the screen went black, I bolted forward, slamming the stop button so hard the whole VCR shook. The tape spat itself out with a clatter, and a hiss like it was angry at me. For a moment, I just sat there, holding it, heart still hammering, trying to convince myself I was fine. It was just a cartoon, just pixels and sound. Then the TV spoke. I swear to you, the set was off, the power light wasn't even on, but a faint echo leaked from the speakers. At first, it was SpongeBob's laugh, warped and slowed down until it was almost a moan. Then it shifted into whispering. My name, over and over. I yanked the plug from the wall. The whispering didn't stop right away. It faded out slowly, like breath on a cold window. I left the tape on the coffee table and went to splash water on my face. When I came back, it was gone. I searched the entire apartment, thinking I'd misplaced it in my panic. But there, it was sitting upright on my pillow, like a pet waiting for me. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It felt heavier now, warmer, almost pulsing under my fingers. That was the first night I dreamed about it. I was back in the Krusty Krab, except it wasn't the cartoon version, it was real, built out of damp wood and rotting nets, smelling of rust and salt. SpongeBob was behind the counter, but he didn't move. His eyes tracked me as I walked past him. In the kitchen, the fryers hissed even though no one was cooking. Something wet dripped onto the floor. When I looked down, it wasn't grease. It was blood, thin and pink. I woke up gasping, my sheets damp with sweat. My nose was bleeding. The dreams got worse after that. Patrick waiting at the end of my hallway, mouth stretching wider than his head. Squidward standing in the corner of my room, clarinet raised like a weapon. Sometimes they whispered rules I couldn't quite catch. Sometimes they just stared, and the tape kept moving. I'd lock it in a drawer, only to find it leaning against the bathroom mirror. Once I left it in the trunk of my car overnight and woke up to find it sitting at the foot of my bed. The more I tried to ignore it, the bolder it became. The tape doesn't like being ignored. I tried reaching out for help online. Some of you remember when I posted about the Blue's Clues incident last year, how my DMs filled with people who'd seen the same thing. I thought maybe it would be like that again. Maybe I'd find others who'd watched this cursed SpongeBob episode. But every time I posted screenshots, the threads vanished, posts deleted, accounts banned. One moderator sent me a single message before my account locked. Stop sharing it. We can't protect you. If anyone else has ever seen this tape, please comment. I need to know I'm not alone. The deeper I dug, the stranger it got. I tracked down old Nickelodeon production logs, stuff archived by fans, employees, anyone who'd saved scraps. Buried in a 2003 scheduling memo was a list of episodes. Most were normal, but one entry stood out. 134 canceled. The word canceled was crossed out 3 times in red marker, then replaced with destroy in block capitals. I found an ex-employee on a private forum. They refused to give me their name, but confirmed something had gone wrong with an episode. It's not supposed to exist, they wrote. We destroyed every copy. When I asked them what was on it, they stopped responding. A day later, their account disappeared. My apartment started to feel smaller after that. Shadows stretched long across the walls, even when the lights were on. I'd catch glimpses of shapes in the corner of my eye bubbles rising from nowhere, cartoon outlines etched in air like burn marks. Sometimes the smell of grease would fill the room, sharp and acrid, with no source. I tried wearing headphones, blasting music, drowning out the whispers. It didn't matter. They'd leak through anyway, faint and high-pitched, like someone humming underwater. I could swear they were getting clearer. Play it again. We're not finished. One night I woke to find the TV on, the VCR empty. The screen was solid blue, no input, but faint shapes floated across it like jellyfish, white outlines of SpongeBob's face, flickering in and out. My nose started bleeding again. By then, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. Dreams and waking life bled together. Sometimes, I'd wake up in my own bed but smell saltwater and hear the distant clang of the Krusty Krab's register. Once, I found a single soggy Krabby Patty wrapper under my pillow. I live alone. The worst part, the tape still played, even after everything. The label wore down to nothing, but the reels spun smooth, unbroken. And every time I put it in, the episode was different. New scenes, new words. It was like it knew I was watching, like it was rewriting itself for me. I thought destroying it would free me. I was wrong. I don't know how many times I've tried to get rid of that tape. More than I can count. Every time I thought I'd beaten it, every time I convinced myself I was finally free, it found its way back darker, heavier, more alive. The first attempt was fire. It seemed obvious. I took it out back one night, doused it with lighter fluid, and struck a match. The flame caught quick, curling the label, melting the edges of the plastic. I remember the smell, thick, chemical, like burning rubber. For a second, I thought it was working. I thought I'd won. But the fire didn't stay. It sputtered out, like something sucked the oxygen away. The tape sat in the ashes, not even warped, cool to the touch, like it had never burned at all. The second attempt was brute force. I slammed it with a hammer until my arms ached. Plastic cracked, reels popped out, black ribbons spilled across the floor. I laughed, manic, relieved, half-crazed laughter. Then I left the pieces scattered and went to bed. When I woke up, the tape was whole again. Sitting neatly on my desk, ribbon rewound, label clean. The hammer was bent. I tried mailing it away. Packed it in a box, duct taped every seam, scribbled the wrong return address, and sent it to some random P.O. box across the country. The clerk gave me a funny look, but I didn't care. I slept like a baby that night, for the first time in weeks. Next morning, there it was, waiting at my doorstep like a loyal dog. Same box, same duct tape, my handwriting on the label. Only this time, the tape felt different, heavier, like something inside had grown. Every time it came back, the episode had changed. It wasn't just repeating anymore. Whole scenes I hadn't seen before. SpongeBob standing in silence for minutes at a time, staring directly at the camera. Patrick mumbling words I couldn't quite make out, like some corrupted prayer. Even Squidward, his clarinet, wasn't music anymore, just long, painful shrieks that seemed to vibrate in my bones. I started to think the tape wasn't indestructible. It was evolving. I tried being clever, leaving it at a bus stop, dropping it in a donation bin at Goodwill. Once, I even hurled it into a lake, but it always came back, sometimes fast, sitting on my couch before I'd even made it home. Sometimes slower, waiting days before reappearing in the fridge, on the bathroom sink, once even inside my backpack at work. I know how this sounds. I know some of you are already typing that I've lost it, that I've cooked this up for clicks. But explain this. How does plastic heal itself? How does a box cross the country overnight and return to my front door? Even the people I trusted stopped believing me. I'd show them the tape, try to explain, and they'd laugh. Creepy, sure, they'd say. But cursed, come on. Then, like clockwork, their phone screens would glitch while the tape was in the room. Or their Bluetooth speakers would hiss SpongeBob's laugh at 3 a.m. A couple of them blocked my number after that. Can't say I blame them. I tried leaning into humor just to stay sane. Called it my roommate. Joked about charging it rent. Told myself it was just a messed up collectible with a mind of its own. But deep down, I knew better. The more I tried to laugh, the more the episode stopped being funny. There was no slapstick anymore. No playful music cues. Just silence, then screams, then silence again. And every time SpongeBob's mouth moved, I felt like he was speaking straight to me, even if the words didn't make sense. Not yet. The final time I watched it, there was no question. It wasn't hinting anymore. It wasn't subtle. The episode spoke directly to me. That's when I realized it didn't want to be destroyed. It wanted to be seen. I told myself I wasn't going to play it again. I swore I was done. But swearing and meaning it aren't the same thing. The tape was patient, waiting, whispering. And in the end, I gave in. I loaded it like a confession. Sat cross-legged on the floor, lights off, curtains drawn, heart hammering as the reels began to spin. The static flickered, the theme song sputtered, and for the first time, there was no laugh track. No cheerful flute, just silence. SpongeBob appeared on screen. Only he wasn't moving. He was just standing there in the middle of his pineapple house, staring at the camera, staring at me. The background pulsed faintly, walls breathing in and out like lungs. His eyes didn't blink. "Welcome back," he said. His lips didn't move. The sound crawled straight out of the speakers, flat and toneless, but it was my name he spoke. Not viewer, not kids at home. My name. I froze. The air went tight in my chest. The room felt smaller. Patrick walked into frame. His smile was too wide, stretching ear to ear. "You keep coming back," he slurred. His pupils swirled like drain water. "Why won't you stop?" I thought maybe it was a trick of my mind, my brain stitching paranoia onto nonsense frames. But then Squidward appeared at the window. His clarinet dangled from one hand, dripping black fluid. He leaned in close to the glass and whispered, "You're not supposed to be here." The episode flickered, frames skipping out of order. And then I saw it, my bedroom. Not SpongeBob's world. Mine. Grainy footage of my own room, my bed unmade, my clothes piled on the chair. The angle was from the corner, like a hidden camera had been watching me for weeks. I stumbled back, nearly pulling the plug. But my hands wouldn't move. My body felt locked in place. The tape kept going. Childhood photos flashed on screen, ones I hadn't seen in years. Me at age 6, birthday cake smeared on my face. Me in high school, awkward and hunched. Each image flickered only for a second, but long enough that I knew they weren't fakes. These were real, from my life, from my past. "How did you?" I whispered, but the tape cut me off. SpongeBob leaned closer to the camera, filling the screen with his too real eyes. "We've always been watching," he said. "We've always been here." The Krusty Krab replaced my bedroom. But it wasn't the cartoon, it was bleeding decayed, nets sagging with black sludge. Mr. Krabs stood behind the register, claws twitching. "You can't tell them," he rasped. His voice was layered, like 3 people speaking at once. "You can't tell anyone, or they'll see you too." I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "This isn't real," I told myself. "This isn't real. It can't be real." The tape answered me. The screen cut to footage of me on the floor, right then, in real time. The same posture, the same shadows. Except in the recording, my mouth was open wide, screaming silently. My eyes were wrong, black voids, bottomless. I scrambled for the VCR, clawing at the eject button, but it was jammed. My fingernails bent back as I pounded the machine. The screen rippled like water, and then SpongeBob's face pressed against the glass, from the inside, bulging forward, lips peeling into a grin. "You think you're telling them this story," he said, "but we're the ones telling it." My throat went dry. "Them," I croaked. He nodded, or maybe the screen itself nodded. "The ones listening, right now." And that's when I realized what the tape was showing me. Not just my past, not just my present, but this exact moment. Me talking to you. On screen, SpongeBob pointed outward. His yellow arms stretched too far, too long, bending past the frame, until it felt like it might reach through. His finger landed squarely on me, and then shifted slightly, pointing straight through the screen. At you. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't look away. The episode collapsed into chaos, frames flashing so quickly my eyes burned. The Krusty Krab, my room, my face, your face, back and forth, until it all blurred together. Screams layered with laughter, static crawling like insects. And beneath it all, one constant phrase whispered over and over: "We want you. We want you. We want you." I don't know how long it lasted. Minutes, hours, time didn't matter anymore. My body shook with sobs I couldn't control. I felt sick, poisoned, like the tape had wormed its way into my veins. I tried covering my ears, shutting my eyes, but the images burned on the inside of my eyelids. Finally, the screen went black. Just black. No credits, no music. I thought it was over. Then faintly, a reflection shimmered across the screen, not mine. Not SpongeBob's. Someone else, standing just behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Empty room. When I looked back, the tape had rewound itself. The reels hummed, waiting. I couldn't touch it. Not anymore. I crawled backward, shaking, whispering to myself, "It's not real. It's not real. It's not real." But my voice didn't sound like mine anymore. And still, I swear I heard it laughing. If you're still listening, if you've made it this far, that means the tape wants you too. I wasn't watching SpongeBob anymore. I was watching myself. And now so are you. I haven't slept properly in weeks. Every time I close my eyes, I hear it, the bubbling laugh, warped and muffled, like it's leaking through the walls. Some nights it's faint, just enough to keep me awake. Other nights it's deafening, rattling the glass, shaking my teeth. It's not just sound anymore. I see them everywhere. Reflections are the worst. In the bathroom mirror, in a dark window, even in the shine of my phone screen, I'll catch a glimpse of yellow, or a pink shape too round to be anything else. Once I swore I saw Squidward behind me, clarinet raised like he was about to swing. But when I turned, there was nothing. Just me. The tape still sits in my apartment. I've stopped trying to move it. I know better now. It doesn't matter where I hide it or how I fight it, it always finds its way back. Sometimes it waits in plain sight. Other times it disappears for days, lulling me into thinking maybe, just maybe, it's over. But it's never over. It always comes back. I think the curse isn't just in the tape. It's in the knowledge of it. The moment you know it exists, it knows you. That's why I've hesitated to share all this. I told myself I wouldn't drag anyone else down with me. But the truth is, silence only makes it stronger. Keeping it secret doesn't save you, it isolates you. That's why I'm telling you now. And that's why you're in danger. If anyone dealt with something like this, if anyone has survived something like this, please post below. Leave a comment, a theory, a ritual, anything. I'm running out of time, and maybe someone out there knows how to stop it, or at least slow it down. Don't assume you're safe just because you haven't touched the tape. You heard me. You've pictured it. You followed every word of this story. And that's enough. That's how it spreads. Maybe you've already noticed it. A flicker on the edge of your vision. Static in your headphones where there shouldn't be. A laugh echoing from nowhere. If you have, don't ignore it. Don't look away. Looking away is when it notices. I've tried fighting. I've tried forgetting. Nothing works. The truth is, I don't think there's a way out for me. But maybe there's still a chance for you. Maybe if you learn from my mistakes, if you pay attention, you'll see it coming before it's too late. I can feel it getting closer now. Every day, the line between my world and theirs blurs a little more. Sometimes, I wake up to find water pooling on the floor, salt water, thick with the smell of grease and old fryer oil. Sometimes, the laughter doesn't stop for hours. And sometimes, I think it's already inside me. So listen carefully. Don't shrug this off as another creepypasta. Don't laugh it away like a ghost story around a campfire. This is real. This ruined me. And it will ruin you too if you let it. I shouldn't have told you this. But now it's too late.